Rikers Island. It really is a tropical paradise where a lot of people go to vacation. A lot of people don't know that.
Wouldn't it be nice if it were? So Rikers Island, folks might be aware, is a prison complex outside of New York City. And a recent report came out that 19 people have died in this notorious detention center, which is more than last year. So it's the deadliest year again. And so basically there's a lot to this, and this is a great article on SharePost that you can find via radindiemedia.com if you'd like to read the whole post. But basically what's been going on at Rikers is it's been over capacity for a long time. It's basically set to house about 3,000 people. And I'll point out that it's set to house 3,000 people poorly. Like no place, no cage is ever supposed to be like, oh, that's humane. So there are roughly about 5,000 people there, to the point where they're shoving people into shower stalls and forcing them to stay there. Obviously, there are multiple people to a cell with no access to bathrooms, so they're just having to like defecate wherever they can. And so this is a human rights crisis, and has been for quite some time. Already back in 2015, there was a court order to change the conditions, and every year since 2015, they have failed to do so. And there's just, it's kind of like the audit. It's like, oh, well, that's a bummer that you failed to do anything about it. And the person who's speaking in this interview, Ole Olurin, actually points this out, that they don't care. They know about the conditions, but there's.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, does it have to mention how some of these people died?
Most of it is medical neglect.
The crocodiles in the moat outside.
I've always wanted a moat.
Have you?
With crocodiles.
And are they like friendly to you?
I don't want a castle because I don't like having a lot of rooms. I want like a bungalow but with a moat.
Are they friendly to you, crocodiles?
Yeah. Like I feed them and stuff. We have like I wouldn't like they're not like cuddle buddies, but like we're cool. Okay. They wouldn't bite me.
Okay.
And they wouldn't bite my friends or anything like that. Just like cops and stuff. So he points out, quote, laws only matter if they're enforced and who they're enforced against. And every time the Monitor, and this is the Monitor that's been charged with pointing out the conditions since 2015, every time the Monitor is giving the update, nobody's complying. 18 deaths since last time. They're just choosing to continue to do nothing. So he points out the powers that be are well aware of the situation at Rikers, but they're not doing anything about it. And he points out, there are several things that could be done about it. A federal receivership, which is basically you transfer power away from the state momentarily so that people can really go in there. It's a nonpartisan group that basically goes in there and says like, okay, these are the problems and we're going to actually get it done. But that's not something that Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, is doing. I wonder why.
The cop mayor of, did you say New Orleans?
Did I? I thought you said New York.
I thought you said New Orleans.
God, anyway, no.
New York, yeah. But yes, former cop.
Yeah. And he has basically said that that's not something that he's going to do. And so basically, it's absolute. It's a human rights crisis. And the federal receivership is one of the things that they're talking about doing, would basically force that oversight into action. And basically it would either decarcerate. So instead of having 5,000 people there, they would have to have like the max 3,000. They would also move towards, because there's been on the books for quite some time that Rikers is supposed to close in 2027.
They keep promising to close it. There were other times they promised to close it.
I know.
Because it's one of the America's most horrific prisons, which is saying a lot considering we have a lot of horrific prisons. We are the largest prison state in the world. People should realize that. Literally the largest prison state in the world, both per capita and per sheer number. and Rikers is one of the most disgusting of those prisons.
And one of the things, and again, you can get into the details of because I just don't want to like read at you for this whole thing. There are more details on what a federal receivership is and how like you could actually make Rikers less of a human rights violation. But really what needs to happen is it needs to be fucking closed. And here's one of the main reasons. And I think that a lot of folks don't know this. And I remember when I found this out at a protest years ago, and I was like, wait, what now? So there's a difference between jails and prisons. Even though people oftentimes use those words interchangeably, jails are where people have not been convicted of crimes, but where they're being held. Rikers is not a prison. It is a pre-trial detention center. It is a jail, meaning at Rikers, over 85% of the people there have not been convicted of a crime.
Wow. I had no idea it was that high.
Have not been convicted.
85%.
They are waiting.
I haven't even been convicted.
No.
And the famous, one of the most, I say famous, but one of the ones that was eventually covered in the media once he sadly killed himself was this kid. I think his last name might have been Bell. I mean, we can look that up pretty easily.
I can't remember, but I know who you're talking about.
But held for 3 years without a trial, charges, and he was arrested when he was either 18 or slightly under 18. And 3 years of a horrific jail without any charges, and ultimately released without conviction. And then sadly, whatever had happened to him in there
horrific
made him take his own life.
Yeah.
But 85%. I didn't realize it was that high.
So these are people who have never been convicted of anything, that are living in conditions that I mean, it's hard to even imagine. Although you could easily find people who have taken pictures and discussed it, and every time it happens, officials are like, "Oh, this is awful. We're going to do something about it," but they never do. And just to kind of zoom out real quick, 2 million people are incarcerated in the United States. Of those 2 million, 400,000 are being held pretrial. So that means 400,000 people have their freedom taken away from them without having been convicted of any crime.
So innocent until proven guilty. That's right.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Why? Is there a problem?
So I want to address one of the comments. Someone, I mentioned that we have the largest prison state in the world, largest number of criminals, not number of criminals, number of inmates. And someone said that's because we have the most criminals. And I would like to take a moment to address that. First of all, you have the fact that Eleanor just mentioned 400,000 of them, meaning 1/4 just about, have not been convicted of anything. So you can't call them a criminal unless they've been convicted of something. Innocent until proven guilty. So that's part of it. Beyond that, a lot, I don't know if it's, I think it's up near 40 or 50% of everybody in our prisons have to do with drug crimes. Now,
non-violent.
Drug crimes are non-violent. If people have issues with drugs, they should be health issues, not crime issues. If you think that decriminalizing drugs would cause some kind of addiction mayhem where it's just people running through the streets high on crack, just humping your dog or something. Actually, Portugal decriminalized all drugs and now leads Europe in the least overdoses, the least, obviously, people in jail for it. It's all been massively positive and beneficial that Portugal has decriminalized all their drugs. So there's that. And if you want an example of another way to deal with someone using drugs, even if you were to keep drugs illegal, in Sweden, they still haven't legalized even marijuana in Sweden. Yet they keep people from doing it for the most part. No, people don't do it anymore than in the U.S. And the reason is because you can have heavy fines for being caught with marijuana, but you're not put in a prison, because locking someone up because they had a fucking little piece of plant that they wanted to smoke and feel a little loopy is insanity. It's insanity. So that's some of how I want to address we have the most criminals. But then the number one way I want to address that is define criminal for me.
I was just going to say, what does that mean?
Is criminal just someone that, stole a wallet or stole a piece of clothing from a store? Or is criminal also the investment bankers that spend all day, every day trying to figure out how to steal more money from the average American people? The white collar criminals, the people on Wall Street doing cocaine like it's going out of style. The people that created the opioid crisis that have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, the people that market the carcinogenic things like Roundup herbicide that have killed God knows how many people. Are those criminals? Oh, no, none of those are criminals. Those aren't criminals. Only criminals are people that steal a car, sell a joint to someone. Those are the only criminals.
I have to say, on that note, in terms of like if we have the most war criminals, I agree.
Do you want me to type in that link, or you can type it in so I can show it?
Yeah, it's the capturedproject.com. And I actually know the folks who did this, some rad folks in New York. It's called the Captured Project. It's from several years ago. It's people in prison drawing people who should be. And so these are all
this is so great.
People in prison that were given, like, here's the CEO of Citigroup. Then there's
they're actually painting them very politely. Like they're not making their face look like a giant dildo or anything.
No, I know. There's the JP Morgan, there's McDonald's, there's Wells Fargo, Monsanto, Koch brothers, like people who have the blood of, like, put together millions on their hands, millions, being drawn by people who are in jail for everything from weed to murder and things like that. But it's like, I think I remember speaking to this guy, one of the guys who did this project, and he was like, he said, I can't remember who this guy was drawing, but he said, oh, this guy is responsible for killing, like 10,000 people or something with his drugs or his whatever.
It was probably one of the sacklers.
I killed one person and I'm stuck here for life.
Probably one of the sacklers. Oh, good. At least I see one of them they made look pretty evil. This woman here, chairman of Archer Daniels Midland. That's what I was saying. I was like, I mean, some of these are like way too polite.
Oh, president of FIFA.
Like, I feel like some of these should just have like a ball sack on their chin or something.
Well, but then that's mean against ball sacks.
Former CEO of BP Oil looks pretty. It looks like his face is melting off. So at least we have that.
So at least we got that going on. But yeah, I mean, and this
Coke Industries fucking maniacs.
These are the people that should be behind bars forever for the security of the entire world. And yet the people who are in jail, drawing these people, are in jail for crimes that are either negligible, like owning a plant, or are legit crimes, but pale in comparison to these people.
Guys, I'm putting the link to that in the comment section. It's called the capturedproject.com.
And it was a book as well.
That was a book.
Yeah. So, and you can click on the images to see the crimes as well.
That's cool.
So it explains, if you want to do that, like just click on someone.
I'll do one of my favorites, fucking Lloyd Blankfein.
So if you scroll down, so it was captured by someone serving 15 years for murder. So here's what Lloyd Blankfein's done: murder, bribery, mass deception and theft, obstruction of Congress, securities fraud, stealing taxpayer money. And this is several years old. And
honestly, those terms are polite. Like,
yes.
Like Blankfein was one of the leaders of the 2008 collapse, as millions of Americans were getting kicked out of their homes, which is essentially, for that family, is essentially burning down their house. So I'm going to use that terminology. Millions of Americans were having their homes burned down, which destroys families, destroys lives. They've actually linked, you can Google the study, they actually linked 5,000 suicides to the 2008 collapse. Now, that is a tiny number of probably the reality, because you can't always link a suicide to what went down in the collapse, but 5,000 at least. So he is a murderer. Now, they can't prove that in a court of law, but he is a murderer. So these charges are, yes, horrible, yet they're honestly the lighter charges of what this guy's done.
And, you can also contact the artist, by the way.
And tell them great job.
Yeah. But like, for instance, DuPont, the former CEO of DuPont, Ellen Coleman, Concealed evidence knew that their pesticide benlate caused health issues, for example, babies born without eyes, yet kept silent during trials brought by victims. Poisoning, responsible for more toxic releases than any other manufacturing company. Public endangerment, illegally released harmful amounts of airborne chemicals, i.e., sulfuric acid across the U.S. Contaminated groundwater on a massive scale, causing cancer and birth defects in multiple counties and countries. It's like
we've really got to move on to another.
I know. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about. I was saying that to myself because I'm about to pull up another one. We got to move on to another topic. However, I have to highlight this one. CEO of JPay. JPay is the basically he sold a system to prisons whereas how prisoners pay for things like phone calls and internet and stuff like that, and it's crazy extortionary and just sucks as much money as possible off these prisoners. So they're paying like 30% more than they would if like an average collect call, even though they have like no money. So a lot of these prisoners will have like $10 in their account and they have to pay $9 to have a 2-minute internet phone call with
that's not very good quality.
Well, it's not good quality with a family member. So and I love that they did one of him. Couldn't get the details on him.
You scroll down. No, click on him and then scroll down.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah, Ryan Shapiro. Bribery, human rights violations, responsible for creating services and pricing incentives that encourage facilities to create rules such as video-only visitation, denying inmates the right to see their loved ones in person. Yeah. All this fucking garbage.